even though it's an old Ford diesel. Nothing quite like putting a rat's nest of wiring back in it where it's supposed to go. That's gonna be fun. Now don't worry too much. These wiring harnesses only go in one way. You have one harness that goes through the firewall there, and one side of the firewall harness that goes through right here. That's a firewall plug. The other one, you got one here, and another one right there. So it's hard to screw it up, but it is finicky feeding it through. So let me feed it through. I'll show you guys how it lays, where it's gonna go, and then when we put the dash in, then we can really screw around with it. But either way, we'll put that guy on. Boom, bam, we should be all set. Got the first one plumbed in. We got that side left, but this is how it looks on the other side of the truck. This is the harness right here. It comes up from the bottom of the heater box and snakes up here. And then that's where my wiring is. These bullnose Fords were always kind of a mess on this passenger side inner fender. Not gonna lie, especially these diesel ones. So we gotta plumb that guy in, but I'm gonna pull the other harness through that side. And I should have noted, if you guys haven't already figured it out yet, this harness only goes in one way. Inside to out. You can't put it in like that and go around. You have to start in the cab. Feed both sides through. That's just kind of how she goes. So we'll do that. We'll get that all set up. All right, let's get this harness jammed through those two holes right there. Got the entire wire harness put in basically. So he's all set. Now there's a lot of routing and dash work to go on. So it's not as bad as a nest as it was. You got to agree with me on that one. But it still is a nest. So we're getting it done little by little. I think the next thing that we're going to do is put the dash structure in minus the top panel, because that lets you basically wire and do everything you need to do. Alrighty, so we got the harness here, got the harness there. I'm going to connect these lights up. I'm going to connect everything that needs to be connected to this side of the harness, and we'll go from there.
Piece of spaghetti.
Well. Looks like I'm going to have to buy a couple of these. Tried 3 of these, taking them off another fender, putting them in, exhausted all my other fenders. These lights are some brittle when they're old. Gonna order up 2 of them. Hopefully they'll get here in time, but for right now, we'll just kind of poke that little light bulb out. Right, so I got this wiring done. Still not the hottest wiring in the world. I would redo this if we had the time, but I don't, so we're just kind of, if it's working, it's working. If it's not, I had to fix it. So down here, I had to put a new inline fuse because there was a fusible link that was all blown out on that guy. And then coming over here, we're gonna leave this guy loose as of right now because I have to put the reservoir tanks and all that stuff back inside. So let me go get the reservoir tanks. We're gonna put those guys there. And then after, we can reroute those guys.
Spaghetti. Lots of spaghetti.
All right, got the old SpaghettiOs inside here. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna put the skin of the dash back on. I should say the frame. Skin was the wrong word. So we gotta put him in, and then we can start, do column stuff and all that stuff. But we gotta put the dash in first. So let's start finagling.
And finagle it will be. Awesome.
Side note, getting ready to put the red dash in. A key fell out of the dash. And that was from my grandfather's F350, which is technically this front cab. So it shares these doors. And I never had a key for this door. Well, put that guy in there. It's a little tight. Oh, come on now. But check that out. That's awesome. So now I got keys for the front doors. So I just got to change the locks on the white ones. And I'll have to have 3 keys. But that's the low buck option. All right, looking at this guy, I would have liked to use red dash because it's all red interior going inside that truck. But it's all blown out here, there, pretty much everywhere it's all blown out. So what we're gonna actually end up doing, I think we're gonna use the blue dash from Old Blue instead of this red one. If you ever find a really nice red one, we'll change it out, but let's go with the blue one. It's in a lot better shape. There we go. Got the rough draft of the dash in. Starting to put the SpaghettiOs inside the dash. That's a fun job. It's really time consuming putting all that little stuff together. Just throwing body panels and tires and brake jobs and stuff like that. You can get a lot done in a day. Zip tying and electrical harness work, that takes a long time. Either way, we're going to keep nose of the grindstone.
keep on going.
All right, making a custom cluster. Basically, all the best parts are going in my diesel cluster from the gas cluster. It's working out pretty good. Basically took away the old cracked dash cluster face, changed it out with the good one. So that's good. I can plug him into there now. Go. Got the gauge cluster in. Still got to put the speedo cable and all that stuff. So I got to route electrical connectors all on the back there, over there. Whole bunch of stuff. We're basically just going to do a whole bunch of SpaghettiOs still. But we are getting it done. Slowly but surely.
All right, off early morning. Let's go grab that drive shaft. Drive shaft place called me last night. Said they got her done. They do fantastic work, but my gosh, drive shafts got expensive. Let's go pick it up.
There we go. Basically 2 brand new drive shafts. Awesome.
I've used these guys in the past for a lot of things, actually. That square body Chev that's in the barn, the F-150 Shorty on its very first iteration of a drive shaft, couple other things. A+, highly recommend, but my gosh, things are getting expensive, but you get what you pay for. So we shouldn't have any problems drivability-wise, vibration-wise, nothing like that for the old 350. So yeah, let's head on back and we might just install that sucker right
Starting
now.
to put the dash in. Got the black on black. Should look pretty good. So now I got to fiddle with basically all the wiring at the back, get that all squared up, put my clips on, all that stuff, get that done, and then I can fully button up this dash. So we got everything on the dash that needs to be connected. Now it's just the top plate and a couple odds and ends, trinkets and stuff. But what we're going to do, we're going to put the accelerator pedal on, and we're going to put the steering column in. With those 2 in, we should be able to do a rough test on starting.
First time this truck has ever started in this form. Not bad.
Right, we got the steering wheel all roughed in there. Roughed in. Clusters all roughed in. 4-wheel drive shifter. He's all set up now. So, what's left to do our preliminary test is basically add fluid to our radiator. I hooked up the bottom lower rad hose. So other than that, we're pretty much set.
Now, we'll give it a little bit of leniency because I imagine it lost its prime. Even if the glow plug cycle, I don't imagine it's going to go off first crank. We might even have to bleed the engine. This is how it goes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a couple small things. I got to chase some lines just on top of this guy, just clean up around the engine bay. And then we're going to put 2 hot batteries in it and see what it does.
All right, so we got 2 batteries in. A little bit of a mixed match. The other Optima is inside the Trans Am right now. But appears like the lights are on. Not too bad. I didn't even turn the switch, so it's either a good thing or a bad thing. But that guy's good. That guy's good. That guy's good. That guy's dead. Okay, so he's likely a bad bulb. Let's see if the rest of the systems work before we even start her up.
And you got to remember, this is going to find grounds and stuff like that that aren't hooked up. Because if systems aren't working, it's either bad bulbs, bad grounds, all that stuff. You can't see it, but I'll show you in a second. One of our roof lights are out, but the rest of the roof lights are on. Not bad. Let's turn the key. Fuel pump's running. And I think I heard glow plugs. Let me see. Sounds like glow plugs just turned off. It's pretty good. So I'm gonna bleed. Our system. I'll bring you guys in. It might be a little bit better.
Obviously that signal light works.
Yes, sir.
The old fuel pump's super loud right now.
Because he's likely blowing air. We have to bleed this guy out. There we go. Bleed that system right out. We got a whole new fuel line. We're gonna make a mess for a second, not a big deal. Glow plugs are still cycling. There we go, we got fuel. Still got a lot of air. If I make a mess, it's okay. It's not gonna be running long. There. All right, before we do the lights and all that stuff, I'm gonna cycle the plugs again, just to make sure we have super fresh glow plugs for when we try to start it. And then we're gonna go with it, and we'll see if she starts up. off. We'll cycle the plugs again. Plugs are cycled. Make sure it's in neutral. And let's see what happens. That's pretty good. Now, bear in mind, it might very well die off though. Just because it's running right now doesn't mean the air bubbles that are coming up aren't gonna get it. Let's open this door so I don't get gassed out. Whoop. Yes, sir. But we might run it for just a little bit. All right, so as for lights, we definitely have a ground issue going on because right now the lights are on. But if I come in here and I push my lights in, they're pushed in. As you can see, they're still on. So either we got a ground or we have a resistance problem. My guess it's the ground and it's back feeding. So not counting the ones that aren't hooked up, like my whole rear circuit isn't hooked up yet. Yo, as you can see, it works fine. Let's see if we get heat. Oh yeah, she's blowing nice and strong, which is exactly what we want. Change her to heat. Oh yeah, we got nice heat there. Overall, really, everything seems to be working pretty darn good. Not gonna lie. There's likely no brakes in the thing. We'll see if the gauge cluster and all that stuff works as it heats up. But if she does, then I can button all this back up. No, that's a nice sight to see. Not gonna lie. It runs. That means that pretty much Old Blue lives again. Can't go wrong with that. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna button up pretty much everything on the inside, put the rear drive shaft in, and likely bleed out the brakes. See what happens. It's drive shaft time. Let's stab that guy underneath the truck. See if it fits. I hope it fits. And there we go. Drive shaft is in. Awesome. And we got a good amount of slip. Everything's all hunky-dory. I just gotta lay some grease to it. All right, we got the accelerator pedal all in. Wing, wing, wing. That's all set. So now we'll put the e-brake in. Right, e-brake is in. Wing, wing, wing. Still gotta put the cable in, so I might even have to take it back out later down the road. But it's in now. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna chase lights basically and make sure all the lights are working on this truck. And then we can button up the dash. Right, so since you guys last saw me, I did a lot of little small things. Let me bring you guys in and I'll show them to you. 1, put the air cleaner back on. He's all set. 2, come over here. We took the brown topper off the brown cab. It's in the best shape. We'll use that guy. He's with the blue dash, all that stuff. We changed out all the burnt out penny lights that are inside that, all the little peanut bulbs. We're screwing around the brakes, but the brake lights, but we'll figure that out down the road. This door is really annoying me because I got to use a screwdriver to open it because it gets in contact with the fender. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. But if we come down here, that's what I spent a lot of time on. Ugh. Got this guy all loomed up, all zip tied up. He's all set. I'm just going to quickly zip tie the brakes down at the back, the e-brake cable. We'll zip tie him up to the frame real quick because I think what I'm going to do, let's throw a seat into this. Just kind of quickly self-tap her in. And I think we're going to do a preliminary test on how the systems are working. Back and forth, all that stuff. We might not go very far with it, but it lets it play around a little bit. And if you're not playing around and you're not having fun, what's the point? So either way, we got this truck running. So now let's throw a seating to it and see if it moves. We have a few seat options. We got a low back vinyl up there. We have a low back cloth right here. And then we have another low back. We're going to be using the cloth seats because they're pretty much a matching set. We'll throw Grampy's old seat up in the front. The other seat will go in the back. But for right now, we'll only do the one seat. That's all we need. We're only doing a test. So let me self-tap that seat in there. I'll bring you guys back. All right, I actually opted to go with the vinyl seat because, you know, you're cooler when you're rolling with vinyl. Either way, got the vinyl seat in. He is literally just self-tapped in the back right now. in case we got to move it around and stuff. Small things. So now it's going to clean up under Old Blue, open the door, we'll turn her on and we'll scoot her out and we'll see what it looks like in the daylight. So this lets us do a couple things that I quite like. One, it lets us take this truck out and see just how bad those body lines measure up without being modified. We know we got to move the bed, we know we got to move some panels, but how bad are they right now? We can go off of that. Second, it lets it outside. Then I can clean inside here where there's some big items that I just can't get around the truck. And C, I think we might be able to start working on that dually conversion out here. It's supposed to be nice for a couple days. No time like the present. Let me hop in, we'll start her up, and we'll back her out. This will also be a good test of, can we even get the truck out of here with the big mirrors on it? No time like the present to try it out anyway. Well, there you go, in all of its glory, just kind of idling out here. Not too bad, not too bad. I'll bring you guys back over here, and you can see clear as day that that bed needs to go up. But overall, we're pretty darn good, not gonna lie. Once we raise that bed up, everything should align pretty darn slick. There's a look from the back, fully, yes sir. There's a look from the front. Yes, sir. There's a look from the side. Yes, sir. So overall, we got the cab and the front fenders pretty good, not gonna lie, for their actual, like, setup-wise. The bed is the biggest one that's off, and then we just have some small adjustments, like that fender at the back has to go up, small things, but overall, not bad at all. Remember, this is pre-body work, pre-everything when it comes to the finish, final job. So overall, I'm pretty happy. Like that fella right there is a one-of-a-kind rigging. That's for sure. So, now that this fella's out, I can deal with kind of all of this, put the scrap right over in the corner, and then the good, usable scrap, stuff I can still steal parts of and everything, in a different pile. Do the same thing here. We should gain a lot of space. Awesome. So, I'm gonna shut that guy off. I'll clean all that up. If it starts to rain, I'll have to bring them in, but that's just the way she goes. Nothing quite like the rattle of an old diesel. Especially, you know, one you just play around with and you make what you want. Rough draft of the Hillbilly Crew Cab, the Mega Cab, is coming along quite nicely. All right, we're unfortunately running out of sunlight, so I gotta switch gears. I have been cleaning up just a little bit, but I think we're gonna have to tackle these hubs. I really wanna know if the cabin chassis 10 1/4 hubs for dually will fit on a standard wheelbase single wheel truck. If so, that opens up a huge realm of possibilities, but there's only one way to know if the hubs are the same versus a cabin chassis and the single wheel. Either way, let's start yanking these fellas off right now. All right, so take a look here. Good news is this rim's not seized on at all, so I just got to lift this guy up and we should be able to pull him right off. There we go. Tire off. Hub on the ground. Let's go to the ground, Mr. Eyelift. Just let it fall. We're just gonna work our way around this drum. I have no idea if the brakes are on, basically if they're seized on or anything. So we might wail on it for a lot, or we might wail on it for a little. Only one way to find out. All right, so brakes are definitely seized on. I think we're just gonna break this drum off. Yeah, I like that idea. There we go, we got a crack. Let's keep going. There we go. Reveal to me your secrets. That looks pretty much like a standardized hub.
That looks pretty much like a standardized hub.
Really? And that's all what we really need. Steal the hub off this guy. And there ain't no brakes left on this old girl anyway on this side, so not a big deal. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. Just a gentle whack with the sledgehammer, and the actual shaft should pop out. There we go. Good stuff. Come on out of there. There's one. Throw him off to the side. We're likely not going to need him. Now, let's start taking apart this guy. All right, pretty hard to see, but it's looking like no external locks, nothing like that, and you know, we don't have the right nut for this. So what we're going to use is simply a chisel and a hammer. I'm going to grab the corner of that guy, and we're just going to knock him loose. Nothing too crazy, really. You don't need to go nuts. Outer lock ring. It's almost out. Lock nut, anyway. Here we go. That was actually a one part, one unit lock. Basically, no outer nut. Should be able to pull this guy right off now. As long as the wheel seal doesn't fight us too bad. There we go. And there is our hub assembly. All right, I got good news and I got bad news, but it's good overall. Take a look. So this old IDI chassis likely seen many lives before it came to me. And you know the old saying, you know enough to be dangerous? Well, that's exactly what went on with this. See, what I was showing you when we took that hub off, you can use the chisel method, I call it the farmer's method, basically to take off an outer lock ring. But you're not supposed to whack super hard and take the complete ring out of it. Basically, the inner lock ring with the teeth to the outer lock ring to the teeth, it's all one piece, it's spring loaded. They broke everything inside, so the lock's always on, making it so then that nut cannot turn no matter what. You basically got to torch it out. So I was here humming and hawing, and I was about to, start pillaging. It would have to be off my grandfather's chassis because that one's a Dana 70, I believe. But I really got looking at it, got out my measuring tape, and I think that's the exact same hub as a single wheel. And the reason I say that is because I have a single rear end right there. And before you go crazy, this is a dually chassis, as you can see by the front end. Let me take you over to the single wheel rear end and we'll measure some stuff out. So this rear end right here used to be a 4:10 gear ratio, Sterling 10 1/4, fully float rear end. It's been a parts rear end for the last 5-6 years. for Old Blue. I had it at a different property. I brought it over here for this project in case we needed a little bit of something here and there. But it really works good for visualizing. So this rear end here, he was out of a standard single-wheel truck. It's the exact same rear end, other than the gear ratio was different, of Old Blue. Exact same spec, single wheel, all that stuff. This is the hub that we just took out of that 10 1/4, the dually cabin chassis spec 10 1/4. Exact same hub. Let me bring you guys in. I'm going to take out a tape measure. We're going to start measuring some things, and they're the same hub. So I got this guy leaning up on a socket. So very first thing that we're going to measure is the distance to the seal to basically our flange. If you look here, we'll go rough estimate, why not? To the back of the flange to that 2-inch. Come in here, you guys might not be able to see it, but guess what? It's 2-inch. It's the exact same thing. Maybe they're longer. Single wheel stud, 2.5. Dually rear stud, 2.5. Well, okay, maybe axle shaft to axle shaft, maybe that's different. Go to here to the axle shaft flange, we're looking at roughly 4 3/4. Flange to flange on this guy, roughly 4 3/4. It's the same hub. So all this time, maybe it's common knowledge, but it wasn't common knowledge to me. All this time I believed that a Sterling 10 1/4 dually rear end for a normal cab was different than a single wheel, but no, it's literally the exact same. So that means that the only difference that makes this a single wheel rear end and this one a dually rear end hub are the wheels that are attached to it and the nuts that hold it on. Crazy. So that means that we can pretty much just put the dually tires onto Old Blue and there shouldn't be any issue. Now don't get me wrong, I'm saying hub wise, not rear end wise. I'm sure that the dually rear end on a normal cab is slightly wider than the single wheel, the axle tubes, the axle itself, but the hubs are the same. So that begs the question, can we simply bolt on dually rims onto this fella? Do we need spacers, any stuff like that? Well, let's take a peek. So if you look at clearance-wise to my spring perch, I'm looking at roughly maximum 3-inch. This inner lip could come in 3 inches. I know what you're gonna say. Geez, that's a lot. That's running her close. What if a rock or whatever? Come take a look at these two cabin chassis and you'll understand what I'm getting at. So we're under my grandfather's 10 1/4, and as you can see, there's quite a respectable gap right there. I would say it's about 3 inches or so. And this is a 10 1/4 on a cabin chassis frame. About the distance that you would see normally on the single wheel. It's about equivalent, 3-inch. Take a look at this Dana 70. Dually rim bolted to it. That's our clearance. Nothing, virtually. Virtually nothing. So that begs the question. If it's safe for the Dana 70, it might not be a factory option for the 10 1/4 to run dually on a single wheel axle. But if they're getting away with it, why can't we? And you got lots of meat on those studs. Again, it's the same length as the studs on the dually rear axle. This is the dually cabin chassis hub, and it had a rim, a spacer, and then a rim. Tons of meat. It's the exact same length, exact same studs. So we shouldn't have any problem just bolting our rims onto that. So I think what we're going to do then is we're going to try bolting on dually rims. We might even just use those two and just see if we can use our normal hubs. Why not? Let's jack this guy up. Let's rip that tire off. And we'll just put those two on real quick and just see if it rubs on anything frame-wise. All right, so the big one is, do we have any space when we bolt this on? We are hitting our 3-inch leaf springs. Not good. Now, there are a few options that we can do.
Now, let's understand the situation that we're in. We're trying to drive this truck basically within the next 2-3 weeks. We pretty much need to be putting hubs on right now so I can order parts. The issue is we only have cabin chassis trucks, cabin chassis axle lengths, basically, that don't fit under this truck.
So we got our good friend the measuring tape here. This front of the cab, right here and here, is old blue spec, basically. I can come out to there. Oh, come on, measuring tape. I can come out to there, and we roughly have like 38 inches. Then, you see it does this. It caves in. We go outer to outer on this guy. It's really hard to do it. 34 inches. It basically goes in 4 inches. So we're already rubbing on our 3-inch leaf springs on that guy. So common knowledge would say swap the rear end, basically, from one of the cabin chassis trucks. But we can't. It's not just as simple as cutting the purchase. We physically can't because it will rub on our leaf springs. It won't work out. Unfortunately, no amount of hub swapping, brake swapping, tire swapping can we get this rear end here to become a dually, unless we do it the very, very extremely dirty way. And that's with spacers and extended studs. Basically, you put a big spacer in between the first wheel. You know what I'm getting at. Then you bolt your tires to it, and then you bolt your tires to the spacer, and you use the spacer studs as your conversion. Do we really want to go about that way? Not really. So pretty much what I'm saying is, unless we get hubs literally falling onto our lap in the next little bit, very short amount of little bit, she's going to end up staying a single wheel, likely for this winter, until the International comes out. Then we can start the hunt, or we can hunt on our way, but I might just do the body work and paint her up the way she is. It kind of sucks. I was really hoping on a dually, but you get what you get at the end of the day. It is what it is. It's really on me. I was assuming, and you know what they say about assuming, make an ass out of you and me. I had 3 dualies here. I should have had enough parts to make one. Obviously not. Obviously that's not the case. Let me bolt on the tire again. And then basically I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, and we'll forget about that dually conversion for right now. It will get it down the road, but for right now she's going to end up staying a single wheel, is what it is. I guess at the end of the day, old blue's still going to look pretty darn slick. No real issue there. No real issue there. Let me put the tire back on, and we'll get this sucker back in before she gets too cold. Don't want her to freeze. All right, let's put the hood release cable in. I've been releasing it from the front, and then I can put the guard on so someone can't get in there with a screwdriver and release it. Let me put this guy on. There we go. Got this little guy in. So now I just got to put the block on and the bolt. Got the old anti-tamper on. So now I think what we're going to do is realign the body panels. I said I wasn't going to do it on this video, but I'm getting awful tired of not being able to open that door. So let's loosen up the body panels, move everything, and get those doors so that they can actually, function the way they should. So I moved the top hinge forward, move the bottom hinge that way. Let's put the door back on, see if we can get it a little bit better than we had it. So have the front clip move forward about 1 inch. So we gained a lot of space that way too. This is why doing panels takes so friggin' long. I moved the hinge back just about 1/2 inch, whatever. Now we're way into this guy. It's a fine, small dance that you have to play. We definitely don't have a problem hitting here now, but that's way too big. So I gotta take the door back off, move the hinge back this way, move the other one back the other way, just a small bit, and then we'll put the door back on and we'll try it again. A full day dance, I can tell you that for free. So now I just gotta bring that door up just a tiny, tiny bit. Not a whole lot, and then we're all set. There we go. That took an ungodly amount. Get this door all set up. Basically, I had to move the actual hinges themselves, then screw around with the door. It's not 100% perfect. I would say it's about 90% there. For this type of truck, 90% is going to be fine for me. But it no longer interferes with anything. Closes awesome. Good, decent gap. We're a little bit sunk in at the top, but I'm fine with that. I can actually bend that out of the door. It's likely the door that's bent, so I'm not too worried about that. So now we got to start focusing on this guy. Same idea. Based off this gap, he needs to go back, hinge-wise. So that's what we're going to do. Rip this guy off, start tackling the hinges. There we go. Got that door all squared up. About the best we're going to get. You know, got my old fabrication work that we're kind of dealing with. But either way, opens, closes fine. Had to play around with the hinges. Had to play around with the door itself. Whole bunch of stuff. But we got it pretty much set up. And this is without, I should mention, any weather stripping on it. I like to set them up first, and then you just slam them a few times, and they're all set. So this side's good now. We can move on to the other side. I got all the bed bolts out. It was kind of hanging out. This bed can come off. It can do whatever we need to do with it. But now, what we really have to do is raise it. Now, I measured it out. We basically have to go up an inch across the entire thing, just because we put that about an inch lift in the body when we did it. So, been looking around for some spacer steel, stuff like that to use. I was going to use that, but that's 1.5 inches. It's going to be way too much. It's going to be 1/2 inch up. What I really should have is an 1 inch by 3 inch box tube. That would work out fantastic. I don't have that. What I do have is an 1 inch by 1 inch box tube, and I'll show you where. And no, it's not in my steel stock. It's actually holding my welder. It is what it is. But that's an 1 inch by 1 inch box tube. Cut that guy off, and we'll use that guy as my spacer steel. That'll work out just dandy. So there we go. There's my bed spacers. I just got to cut them out, grind them out, paint them out. Down the road, we'll do 1 inch by 3 inch wide. That's going to be a lot better. But for right now, that lets us mock it up. It won't be a problem. Temporary, permanent, you know what I mean? But down the road, we'll definitely switch these out for some wider ones. There we go. Got them all laid out, all drilled out, all cut out. Gonna lay some black on it. Might as well use the International frame, you know, for something good for the Mega Cab. I'm gonna wire wheel all this off anyway. So, what's a little bit of black added to it? I'll spray all those guys. They'll dry overnight, and then we can install them in the morning. Awesome. There we go. Got them all painted up. We'll let those guys dry. So I might as well get the elephant out of the room that I've been thinking about there. I know I said I wasn't gonna do the dually because we didn't have the parts. We didn't want to do spacers. It's not the right way. Well, long story short, we're going to do spacers. You know why, though? The main reason why, again, it's not the right way to do it, because you're moving your center, basically your stress point, out, especially on your duals. The main reason we're doing it is because when we paint this, I got a good deal on some blue paint. So actually, we are going to paint this at least the base color this year. We might not do the two-tone this year, but we'll do the base color. I want to do the hips on her, you know? I want to do it all in one shot. So that means I need to make it dually in order to do it. So we'll use the spacers for this year, get it all set up. Then down the road, likely when we do a D60 up front, we'll do like a 10.5 instead of the 10.25 in the back. And that way, you know, we can hit 2 birds with 1 stone. I think it would work out pretty darn slick. So we're going to do spacers on that. So I just wanted to get that out there. Spacers should be here in a week or 2. Should be able to work out just fine. There we go. These are all dry. It's the next day. Let's lift up the old bed. I'll pop these guys in. Should fix the body line. All right. Got the spacer blocks all inside my bed. So now this guy's at the right height for the cab. And I know what you're going to say. It's about a 16th, maybe an 1/8. A little too low compared to the cab, but the cab's not bolted down yet. It's sitting on the mounts, but it's not squished, we should have about a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch of squish in those soft mounts once we go like that. So everything should line up at the end. So now what I got to do, I'm going to square off the bed. We're not going to bolt it down fully yet because when we paint, we're going to have to lift the bed mounts out anyway, scoot that guy out onto the bumper. So for the time being, we'll square them up, make sure we're right on that, and then with him square to the frame rails, then we're going to make sure that we get the cab square because I think the entire body has to scoot that way just a little bit. Talking maybe, you know, an 1/8 inch, maybe 3/16 down to, I guess it would be the right passenger side. I'm talking front clip, cab, everything that way a little bit. But the measuring tape's not going to lie. Let me square off the bed, and then we can measure off the cab. Been doing a lot of things off camera, off the scenes. You can't really see it, but basically just putting mounts on, getting everything aligned. This side's virtually completely done. I say virtually because the bed is not tied down yet. It's just loose. Just kind of sitting there because when we paint, we have to lift that guy and put him on the bumper anyway. So I'm leaving that just as is for now. But this whole side here, we're pretty much all squared up. Body mounts, all that stuff, which, you know, I think we're doing pretty slick. And the good thing is that I'm happy about now that we have these body lines all matched up, we have a 2.5 inch leveling kit, whatever, in the front. And the whole reason I put this RSK kit in this truck a long time ago is one of the very first things I put into this. It'd be like 6 years ago now. I put that in so it would ride a lot better. It moves the shackle to the back, and it does, but it lifts the front up quite a lot. So these are 31 inch tires, roughly. Kind of comes up to 37.5 inches to my wheel well. Going from this lip to the ground, we're basically now 37.5. It leveled out the truck, but that was never my intention because I use this truck all the time. I use it for work. I load up the bed, all that stuff, and we're not going to stop doing that. I don't like the look of it, you know, going down on the bottom, so I bought some things to remedy that. Now, I'm the one that cleaned these up, so they're not brand new. Paid 20 bucks for the two. But either way, these are painted F450 OEM blocks. They're 4 inches tall, which is pretty good. This truck has 2-inch blocks in it right now. So between U-bolts and these new blocks, that's going to bring our rake back to OEM spec, nose it down again, and make it ride like a truck. So before we do the dually conversion and all that stuff, I think it's a good time to get that part done. So let's go underneath. Let's start cutting some U-bolts and place this guy in. All right, so under here, what we're going to do, I'm just going to cut this guy here, cut that guy there, all 4 sides, and we'll just pull out the U-bolts just like that. We have it supported right now on the back. I'll likely put some chocks up front, but then we can lift off the entire truck from the axle, about 4 inch, put our new block in, etc., etc. Should work out pretty good. Go. Got them all cut. So now we're going to raise it up with this old jack here and separate it. Should work out. So there you go. That's the new lift block. That's the old lift block. So that's how much we're going to be raising the back end compared to the front. Should definitely give us that truck rake back. Side note, this side is always fanned out a little bit. The center pin in this spring is broken. Not a big deal. You can replace that with a grade 8 bolt, and that's what we're going to do. Replace it with a grade 8 bolt and then grind the head and then weld it, and it'll be all hunky-dory. Either way now, I got to break that off. But what I'll do, I'll clean the perches and all that stuff, and I'll do that on the side. Just put a bolt in, grind it, weld it. It'll be all hunky-dory. That will stop this guy from fanning. So that's the plan anyway. Let me do that, and I'll bring you guys back. All right, got my new center pin installed. Basically tightened her up. Use the old hot glue gun for the lock. So he's all set. Now I can put my blocks in. We can put the U-bolts on. Strap her down. There we go. Hard to see. But got the new spring pad on. You guys down here. Got the new lift block on. I shouldn't even call it a lift block. It's just factory F450. But that fixes our rake. Again, that's what we got going on in the back. Pretty good. We'll measure it again. Again, on our front, roughly, 37 and a half, roughly. From the top of the tire to that, we're looking at roughly 8 inch. Here to here, we're looking at 39 and a half, roughly 9¼ inches. So overall, that's quite an improvement. It actually gives it a truck stance again. And it's starting to get kind of tall. We still got to put those other tires on it too, so it's getting rather big. Much improved stance. I quite like that. Versus what it was before. Actually has the truck rake to her. That's what you want, especially when you got an old work truck. Well, there you go, guys. We certainly got a lot done on the old Mega Cab. It's pretty much back to its actual stance on how it's supposed to be. A lot of the body panels are working again. We got it running, drive shafts in, it moves, it stops, it does all the things it should do. Now, there's still lots to do on this old goat. We got a little bit of maintenance items we have to go through, and there's still a dually conversion coming down the pipe, and there's still no interior in the thing, and I guess the windshield has to come out, and there's a lot of things to do left on this, so we still got to keep cracking. That's going to finish it for this video. So let me know, would you guys rather see the dually conversion next, because we have the stance that we need, or would you rather have the interior done, the body panels, like everything done, lights, all that stuff, get this guy pretty much working 100%, put the mechanical bits in it, we got steering, we got hubs, we got a couple things we got to go through on the front. Just, standard wear and tear items that old Blue needed down. Get those all squared up. So would you rather see the maintenance side of this, get this guy basically a running and driving truck, or would you rather see the dually conversion pretty much all wrapped up? Let me know what you guys want to see. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll be coming in quick with the next one. See you guys.